Well, hello everyone. My name is Tracey Stewart, and I am in charge of the light and electron microscopy portion of the high resolution microscopy facility at Iowa State University. We're centrally located in Iowa in Ames. Um, with we always tease the University of Iowa is the other white meat. So, um, the Revealing the Invisible project kind of came about because I am 30 years into my career and I'm looking to segue into doing something else with my life other than microscopy when I retire, and hoping to retire a little early. And in doing such, I have pursued art and self-taught mediocre watercolor artist and just learning and wanting to make that my next adventure. And in doing so, it put me into the opportunity to maybe do a little bit of overlap from what I do in microscopy to segueing into art. So this original presentation I actually gave to some of the students here at Iowa State that I'm looking to bring on board on this project. Microscopy is a sighted science. You got to see it, right? And it's somewhat limiting to people who are visually impaired or blind. And this is just a kind of an overview of people say, what do you do? Well, whatever walks in the door, whether it's nanoparticles or viruses and bacteria or who knows what, nematodes, light microscopy, histology, paraffin, resin, whatever approach. But in looking at what I wanted to do later in life, I have started to if I'm going to art, I want to do it right. So locally, we have a thing called the Business of Art Conference, and it allows people who are artists and even hobby artists to learn how to business their art. Should you want to open up an Etsy shop or something and maybe doing it appropriately. And looking at becoming a hobby artist was the rabbit hole, because in attending this Business of Art conference, our plenary speaker the first year I went was this artist, Jill Wells. And Jill is a mural artist. So she paints murals all over the world, from Australia to Germany to high school walls in their lunchroom. And in her process of becoming an artist, her brother had a stroke and went blind. And before she actually became an artist. And so she was always looking at means of being able to provide a way to show her brother what her art is. It's in that he can't fill the wall and be like, oh, it's a rainforest. So she has created 3D prints of her art on site wherever she arts. So there's always a 3D print. There is alt text to braille, considering people like her brother who can't necessarily experience her mural art. And I thought about that, and I was like, oh, I wonder if I couldn't 3D my birds that I like to paint. And, I looked into, are there printers out there that I could print and give kind of a typography so people could feel, my barn owl. And then in doing so, I realized that these are black and white pictures. And then I went, Tracy, you do a lot of black and white pictures in your lab. Why couldn't I 3D my microscopy? And funny enough, this meeting that I attended was at hosted at the Ryman Gardens. So this Business of Art conference is again at the Ryman Gardens, which is our on-campus local garden. And they have a butterfly wing. It's a wonderful experience. Go in, see all the different butterflies. And back in the early 2000s, we did an SEM project with Nathan Brockman, who is the entomologist there who runs the butterfly wing, to create just a poster and looking at the different scales. Butterfly wings are made up of teeny tiny butterfly dust as scales. They look like fish scales. If you rub them, they come off on your hand. Some of them are biologically dyed and some of them are not. And building on that previous research experience, we my goal was literally to potentially look at the iridescent scales. So iridescent scales are not biologically blue. They are blue because of the physical nature of the surface of the scale and other actually more advanced concepts in physics of it. But for the general purpose, there are lines on those little scales that allow for different wavelengths of light to get trapped and emit. And that's what iridescence is. So the blue morpho butterfly, the actual color of the scale is kind of a pukey, clearish brown, if you really must know. But because of the nature of the way it's printed or made by the butterfly, it emits as the color blue. And I thought, what if I used the SEM and made 3D prints of the butterfly scales at different levels, and then people could understand what, microscopy, enlargement, zooming in. How do you explain zooming in to someone who's blind? So I worked with and reached out to the materials or the mechanical engineering additive manufacturing facility here at Iowa State, and met Sawyer Croats. And I asked him if he could maybe 3D print some of the images that I generate under the SEM just based on grayscale. I can tilt it 7 degrees and do that and give him files that way. And he said, well, let me play with it. I've got some undergrads who have some materials and time and a 3D printer. Let's play. And he was able to generate some of these 3D models. And the beauty of using the iridescence is not just to show maybe what microscopy is, but now we're getting into the realm of when you zoom in on one scale, it actually has these lines. They're called scoots, just like what's in other animals. They call them scoots, like on turtle shells. And those thicker lines, those bands, are what determine that iridescence or the blue light coming out. And you can now texturally feel the color blue. And then Nathan Brockman, the entomologist at Ryman Garden, says, well, I have this moth and it iridesces in all the colors. And I went, okay, let's take a look at yellow and red. And lo and behold, the spacing translates. So we now have the ability to print the color blue, the color yellow. And again, these are representative. They're not the true, because smarter people than me have done all of the physics. I mean, there is literally Fibonacci secreted things on the scoots that go into the absorption and the actual science of it all. But the beauty was that it really did translate in terms of the spacing from blue being a narrower band light, yellow being a medium, and red being large. That could potentially be a way to describe these things texturally to people who are, again, visually impaired. So this project is going to be an exhibit, and we needed to find a place for it. So again, looks like we'll put it out at Ryman Gardens, but we need help. I'm really great at electron microscopy and not so much at creating a museum-like exhibit. So I have reached out to one of the programs we have here at Iowa State in the College of Design. It's called SciViz. It was biomedical illustration. And these are undergraduates and graduate students who can then help to generate the really beautiful, descriptive, the graphics, so to speak, and help with the semantics. And what we eventually want to do is create a museum quality exhibit. And Sawyer Croats is on board with having us work on trying different kinds of prints and things. We have, again, worked across the campus with Office of Biotech, supporting all of my silliness on the SEM, messing around with that, working with the RET program, which is a teaching program for teachers in the summer that gives them a research experience that they can then take into their classrooms in middle school and high school. I've had an RAT teacher. She was the one who actually looked at the yellow and red scales to show that they really did translate well. Again, Ryman Gardens, mechanical and additive manufacturing, and SciViz. And so far, it's just been this consortium of all of us working together. Right now, it's my vision wall, and that's not sexy. I want it to be pretty. I want it to be an actual exhibit. So I'm working this semester with. I have three undergraduates and one graduate student who have jumped up and down to be on board with this project. And we are going to work on generating this exhibit to the public, and it will be at the Ryman Gardens. And we're looking at different approaches. Instead of making 3D prints, we're looking at lithophane and lithophane technology, again, using a 3D printer. Lithophanes are kind of unique in that when you look at a lithophane that's lit from behind, it looks like a black and white image. It's gorgeous. It literally has beautiful detail. But it also, when you touch it, is a 3D print. It's representative. So it may be what we end up using as the display out at the Ryman Gardens so that we can show what magnification is and what the color blue and yellow and red feel like. So that's my thing. And again, what am I going to do when I retire? I don't know, but it's coming.